So yesterday we finished American Revolution and we started French Revolution. How I read means after reading I can note or write, remember. 15 minutes, yes, 15 minutes rule you can use, or you can make your own shorthand notes, or you can read what I have written. It's just that you have to read. You don't read for 2 hours and then revise for 2 hours. That is not revision. Revision has to be small, lower. Has to be lower. That is the basic point. Once you've read everything, you need to know what to read again. And that is the art of revising. Once you read a 100-page book, you need to only now read 50 pages, which have been marked by you in that sense. Okay. Purva, refresh. Okay. So we discussed American Revolution yesterday. And now, yesterday itself, we started French Revolution. And if you remember, we had identified that cause and significance is what really comes in the examination. And we did causes in quite a lot of detail, understanding the economic, political, social, ideological, and immediate causes. And then we went into course. And in the course, we had reached till 1793 after writing one constitution and going to war. They had now were in the process of writing their second constitution, which is the Republican Constitution, which makes them a republic. Now, what I will do is that I will revise with you, but I'll read it out of the PPT because what I told you between 1789 and 93 is something which we can do from the PPT itself. And once we reach 1793, I take the story forward. Today's agenda is to finish French Revolution and we have to discuss the unification of Germany. Italy and Industrial Revolution we will do on Monday. Today we will finish this concept itself. First Continental Congress, Second Continental Congress created after the Intolerable Acts. First Continental Congress, Continental Association. Second Continental Congress, Continental Army. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. Okay. So, our story started with this. When Kahlo convoked the Assembly of Notables. Now, we are revising everything what we've done in the French Revolution course part. So Assembly of Notables was convoked in 1787 itself, and representatives of three estates met. Kahlo proposed systemic reform. However, the Assembly of Notables opposed reforms in which they had to, the first and second estate had to pay any form of taxes, and Kahlo was removed. Thereafter, Brigney will decide that let us do one thing, let us call the estate general, a representative of the three estates, and there will be feuds and debates and discussion among the third estate what to do. They had already passed a resolution that they will become a national assembly if they are not allowed to enter into the Palace of Versailles. That is what is going to happen. There will be a pamphlet which will be released just one day before they meet for the estate general, which is called What is the Third Estate by a person called Joseph Saïz. Saïz will argue to the people, and a very popular pamphlet it was, that what is the third estate? Everything. What has it been till now? Nothing. What does it ask to be? Something. And therefore, what happens is that now when they are not allowed to enter into the palace, they take the tennis court oath, thereby arguing that they will not leave the tennis court unless and until they write a new constitution. Later, priests and nobles will also join, and the National Assembly will now replace the Estate General. This is basically the tennis court oath. Now, we move towards the storming of the Bastille. Food shortages were still there, inflation was still there, Necker was brought back, then removed again. But the point was that commoners were becoming more and more restless as they were seeing the army getting mobilized. So the commoners stormed to the Bastille, a major fortress and royal armory. Thereafter, on 14th July, they declared it as a national day till today. The tricolor was waved. A new government, small government, was formed, the Paris Commune. And Lafayette, a noble, was appointed as the commander of this commune, and that was called the National Guard, that vowed to protect the National Assembly in writing its what we call as constitution. Now, as I told you, writing a constitution does not really take away the issues which are there in France. So the Great Fear will start to develop again in July, August of 1789. Lack of grains, increased prices, rumors were now again spreading around. So in what is called the August Decree, the National Assembly will have to then launch a very important sector or very important set of reforms. Sure, Mir Shabir, let it be there, but it is not part of a syllabus. That's not part of a syllabus. Let it be there. It's for your reference. Okay. So in the ninth night of 4th August 1789, they will abolish the feudal system, whatever was left. The feudal regime, the old regime, the tith, the old judicial system, administrative offices, all will be declared void and null. And they will declare what we call as the Declaration of Right of Man and Citizen on 26th August 1789. Now, Lafayette and Sayes had referred to Thomas Jefferson for writing this. And as we know, this is the mother of all constitutions in the world, the most important document produced in the French Revolution generally. So I will tell you the years which are important, Aishwarya. Don't worry, just revise with me because this is something which we had to do. So the Declaration of Right of Man and Citizen gives them standard rights, which now become the preamble for the first constitution which they will write, which is the Constitution of 1791. In this, what had happened was that tithe, which was a tax taken by the church, will be abolished. Church property was nationalized, taken by the government. National system of what we call as electing the clergy itself. Because of this anti-church approach, there was also civil war type situation. Louis the 16th had no other option but to sanction all the decrees itself. And when the Constitution, tithe is a name of a tax which the church used to take. Constitution of 1791, when it will come into force, it will have the following structure. The Declaration of Right of Man and Citizen became the preamble, gave birth to constitutional monarchy in France. Legislative Assembly was a sovereign body. Now, he had suspensive veto, but all power was with the Legislative Assembly. Separation of powers was there. No war and peace without the approval of Legislative Assembly. And judges were also now elected. Now, what Louis XVI will try to do is first give Austria and Prussia this idea to attack France and also try to escape to Austria, but he will get captured. Now, in all of this, as you know, the Legislative Assembly was getting divided into two factions. One are called the Jacobians, the other one are called the Girondinists. The Jacobians are Republicans, the Girondinists are constitutional monarchy supporters. The point was that people were still not happy with what the French Revolution had actually achieved. They wanted more. There were multiple riots, multiple protests, which were still happening. So the political moves were such that people wanted to move forward. They were still not happy with constitutional monarchy, which existed in Britain at this point of time. Now, whilst all of this is happening, the Jacobians, who were the radical Republicans, basically the people coming from the lower strata, they wanted to establish a republic. They were basically leading thinkers, deputies, progressive members of the society, and they used to call themselves also the sans-culottes. Sans-culottes is a word which is used for Jacobians because every noble used to wear a certain type of button on their what we call as clothes, but they used to not wear it. So sans-culottes, not having clothes. Clothes is the buttons which were the nobles were wearing. On the other hand, the Jacobians are very, very important in our story because they were led by a person called Maximilian Robespierre. They were the people at the lower level who wanted more change. And the Jacobians actually in the National Assembly used to sit in the left. And there is the concept of left and right comes from here. The parties which are very radical and want quick change are called left parties because Jacobians used to sit on the left and the Girondinists used to sit on the right, and that is why they are basically called the conservative parties who wanted status quo. So they used to wear very long striped trousers, used to look like dock workers, and they had a totally different sense of fashion so as to show that they were the working class people, the people on the ground itself. Now, whilst all of this is happening, there are rising tensions with Prussia, and the National Assembly, which was dominated by the Girondinists, will vote to go to war in 1792 with Prussia and Austria. A major blunder because it will only further make the problems worse in that regard because war is not good for economy. And therefore, multiple people will throng and go and join the army itself and fight against Prussia and Austria. However, there will be multiple impacts of this itself. There were more and more economic difficulties. There were more issues in coping with how to learn or how to earn the livelihood itself. Men had to go to war. Women were now getting frustrated in the countryside. The constitution had not given everyone the rights, only the rich people the rights. And political clubs and Jacobians now were becoming more and more restless. And therefore, the Girondinists, who were the moderates, were the problem at this point of time, because they were protecting the monarchy at this sense. And these constitutional monarchy, these people who used to sit on the right, conservative people, wanted the revolution to stop here. But the Jacobians did not want that. Now, once the war starts and Louis XVI tries to again flee to Austria, which is called going to his summer palace, which is called Tuileries, he will be actually picked up by the people, specifically a very angry mob of women, what is called the storming of the Tuileries, and he will be brought back. And now they will find connections between Austria, Prussia, and Louis XVI. Monarchy will be suspended. The National Convention will be formed by the Jacobians, and now the king will be tried. So in September genocide, this is the one which you were basically referring to. There are multiple September genocides. September genocide is that when now the royalists are killed, the loyalists are killed, multiple people are killed on the Paris streets itself. Jacobians will now win the National Convention, which was created by them. On 21st September 1792, the first republic will be formed. The king will be found guilty of treason. He will be convicted. And on 21st January 1793, he will be killed and France will become a republic. Now, very simply, all of this was to read it out of the PPT. But let me give you a summary of what has happened till this point, and we will move forward. All of this I told you yesterday in a story, and I have to take the story forward. So the first 15-20 minutes, you just have to enjoy the story further. I will tell you what to remember. We have discussed the causes. Anybody has any issue in the causes of the French Revolution? Anyone? Left are concerned with change, right are concerned with status quo. Anybody has any issue in causes? No. Perfect. Now, we started at 1789. French Revolution starts. And I'll give you a timeline in the end, so don't worry. I'll give you a consolidatory timelines through which you can revise. But as of right now, French Revolution will start because of what Brigney will do. And you have the tennis court oath and the storming of Bastille. Now, by August of 1789, we also have the Declaration of Right of Man and Citizen. By 1791, they have written their first constitution, which makes them a constitutional monarchy. And by 1792, the Legislative Assembly is divided into two, Jacobians and Girondinists. They want change. Republic, they don't want change. And the Girondinists actually dominate the Legislative Assembly, and they will declare war against Austria and Prussia. 1793, second constitution, Republic of France. King is killed. Anybody has any issue here? And this becomes National Convention. I'll give you a timeline. Don't worry, everything will be summarized. Anybody has any issue till this point? Is there any chance of no, Aniket? If they're asking you storming of Bastille or they're asking you Declaration of Right of Man Citizen, they can ask you the significance of these two, not how it happened. Nobody's asking you how. They can ask you significance of it. Are we clear with regards to what we've done till this point, please have to tell me, because now I will go into the next part and we will finish French Revolution story. Another 10 to 15 minutes of discussion, that is it, of the story itself. Okay. Perfect. 1792, two things. Because the Legislative Assembly was there, two political parties were developing, Jacobians, Girondinists, and they fight war with Austria and Prussia, because Austria-Prussia was suggested by Louis XVI to attack France. Okay. Girondinists control Legislative Assembly. There was a majority party in the Legislative Assembly, Kishan. Okay. Now we take our story forward and we talk about what happened between 1793 to 95. Now, please pay attention again. You don't have to learn this, but again, enjoy the story because something very interesting is going to happen. Now, 1793 Constitution has made France a republic. Now, this constitution was written. Now, writing the constitution is enough, or you have to go a step further? Writing the constitution is enough, or you have to go a step further? You have to go a step further, which is implement it. Very good. Implementing is important. Now, 1793 Constitution was written by the National Convention. And the National Convention was controlled by the Jacobians. And their leader was a person called Maximilien Robespierre. Can be comparison of revolution with Indian national. No. Shelly, not possible. Or not possible. As it is, we are getting colonized at that point of time. They are getting independence. There's no type of question. These type of questions don't come. It's not a school level examination. No. Now, Maximilien Robespierre. Maximilien Robespierre is the one who is basically the leader of the Jacobians. So now it would have been very easy for France to stop here, implement the 1793 Constitution, and become a republic. But for France, it is easier said than done. So what happens is that Maximilien Robespierre says, wait. Before we actually do something or implement this constitution, let's do one thing. Let's remove all the people in the society, remove all the elements of the society which believed in the king. So he said that let us do one thing. Let us cleanse the French society of these royalists. And Maximilien Robespierre, what he does is, rather than implementing the constitution, Robespierre will form two committees. One will be called the Committee of General Safety and the Committee of Public Safety. He will become himself the member of the Committee of Public Safety, and this body will now start to prosecute everyone who had connection with the king. So you are the barber of the king, guillotine. You are the person who used to give milk to the king, guillotine. You say the king is good, guillotine. Now Robespierre basically becomes like a dictator, and he derails the whole French Revolution. And what he launches between 1793 and 94 is called the Reign of Terror. Somebody said to Robespierre that your haircut is not good, guillotined. Basically, Robespierre, if you disagree with him, he will start to guillotine people. Guillotine means that he's basically killing, beheading them. So there will be wholesale killing of Girondists, of the people who are linked to the Girondists. Even philosophers were guillotined and killed. A very important female activist, Olympe de Gouges, she will also be guillotined. Basically, Robespierre will totally derail the French Revolution. The French Revolution was never about destroying the society. The French Revolution was never about cleansing the society. But Robespierre, what he will do, he will take more of the land from the church, say to the church, you cannot do anything. He was so obsessed by his own rule that he will also start his own calendar. He will say that this calendar which we use, which is the Gregorian calendar, is basically a way of English trying to push something on us. We will rather introduce a new calendar. So he introduces a new calendar. It is called the what we call as Reign of Terror calendar. So he will shift and change all the what we call as months. So he will call, for example, the period between September as Verdimir, then Brumaire. Again, don't have to learn this. Brumaire, Frimaire, Nivose, Provos, and the most important period is this, Thermidor. Because by July of 1794, people had started to realize that he is losing his mind, that Robespierre is losing his mind. So from 1791 constitution to writing the 1793 constitution, rather than implementing this constitution, he derails everything. And now he will even kill his own members of the committee if they disagree with him. And basically the period between 1793, 94, 95 is considered Reign of Terror. And by Thermidor, which is July of 1794, people will start to realize that he has basically lost his mind. And in the July of 1794, which is called the Thermidorian reaction, people will arrest Robespierre himself and he will also be guillotined. And now there is a whole-scale guillotining of Jacobians. And they will now write their third constitution, which is the 1795 constitution, which is called Directory Rule. Directory Rule is nothing but the concept that they believe that if there is only one executive, that is the problem. So what they did was they had 5 directors plus 2 legislative houses. Bicameralism plus 5 directors. Now, the point is, as Shelley has pointed out, very good, were the bread riots going on? Yes. Because will the whole-scale killing of Girondinists solve the problem of the economy? Reign of Terror, Reign of Terror. Thermidorian reaction. Thermidor is the month, July. No. So, in a way, and remember one thing, don't forget, since 1792 they are fighting also. वो war चल रहा है background में. That is something going in the background. So, very simply, they don't know what they really want. And that is why it is comical that they start with saying that we want to change France. They write one constitution, then second constitution, then third constitution. In between, Robespierre derailed the whole French Revolution itself. So the war with Prussia and Austria is still going on. Since 1792, it is still going on. In the background, now they are fighting even other countries also. So very simply, their basic understanding was guillotine, 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 kill the person who does not agree with you. But the problem is, see, when they write the 1795 constitution, things should have become stable. That is what we hope. However, that is not the case. What happens is, between 1795 and 97, there will be one election which will happen. And ironically, what will happen in that election is that the Jacobians will start to come back. And the directors now started to fear the fact that the Jacobians are coming back. So they will annul the elections, basically say that the election is null and void because two of the directors out of the five now became Jacobians. And by 1797, even the directors were considering capturing power and removing the constitution itself. And in between all of this, in 1799, a general who had been fighting across Europe, a person who had made his career during the French Revolution, a person who really believed in the ideals of the French Revolution of liberty, fraternity, and freedom, named Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon will now come back to France and see what situation was there in France itself. And before the directors could capture power, in 1799, he will capture power. There will be a military coup. He will capture power and write the fourth constitution, which is called consulate rule, in which he will have three consuls, basically three directors, and three legislative houses. And from 1799 onwards, France will start to stabilize under Napoleon because he was trying to do something not for the people but for himself, which I will tell you when I talk about Napoleonic rule. Now, if you get a basic idea of what is basically happening, the fact is that when it came to implementing the 1793 constitution, now please pay attention, there were multiple moments in which there was decentralization, economic liberalization was needed. Rather, the extreme left, the mountains, the Montagnards, will not allow the implementation of the constitution and rather implement the terror. The Committee of Public Safety and General Safety will be established, and they will now start to become the supreme institutions without even implementing the constitution. The General Committee was to function like a police and go after imprisoning people who are connected to the king. That will actually happen. Multiple revolutionary tribunals will be there, and now there will be killing of thousands of people because of the way they were thinking of royalists and loyalists. Now, whilst the 1793 to 94 period was not that significant for any constitutional development, a new calendar was introduced, new symbol was introduced, and the church's power was reduced. The guillotine still remains the symbol of the reign of terror. And because Robespierre was basically losing his mind, in July of 1794, in the French month of Thermidor, which is July, Robespierre will be arrested and Jacobian Club will be banned. And the Girondinists will take control of everything after realizing that basically Jacobians had lost their mind. Now, the reason for the Thermidorian reaction was very simple, because people had realized that Robespierre had derailed the French Revolution. Women activists, philosophers such as the very, very, very influential Condorcet, he was also guillotined. Olympe de Gouges was guillotined. And very simply, he was now even executing his own deputies if they were not agreeing with Robespierre. Robespierre had now become a dictator. And therefore, in the constitution of 1795, they will try to write a new constitution in which they will have bicameral legislature, two houses, and 5 directors. However, by 1797, when the Jacobians will start to win the directory elections and even the elections at the ground, they will annul the election because of the fear of the Jacobians coming back. And once Saiz and Taraland, two of the directors, were planning to take power away from the people, Napoleon Bonaparte will capture power in 9th November 1799 and overthrow the directory and introduce his own rule. Now, if you look at it, there are four phases which we've discussed, which is the 1789 to 91, 91 to 92, 92 to 95, and 1795 to 99. What I want to do before I go into Napoleonic era, Napoleon comes from no party. He's a military general. It's a military coup. What I want to do is I want to consolidate everything through one timeline, and I want to then move to Napoleon. Difference between general and public safety, nothing really, but it's that the general safety has less power, public safety has more power, and that is what Robespierre controls. Are we all on the same page with regards to this? What I'm going to make on this slide is what you have to remember. The dates and the names written on this slide is what you have to remember. Can I write that down? I will give you a trick to remember the date also. It is very easy to remember. Don't have to worry about that. Okay. Yes? Have to be more vocal. Come on. Okay. Now, first, the trick. See, if you realize one thing, all dates are +2. +2, +2, +2, +2, +2. Which is, this is French Revolution, this is first constitution, second constitution, the moment in which the directors try to capture power, and Napoleon. So it's all +2, +2, +2, +2. Remember 1789, and thereafter just add 2, +2, +2, +2. 91, 93, 95, 97, 99. So it is very easy to remember, not a very heavy date to remember because of the pattern itself. So this is the trick to remember the dates. So very simply, let me give you the timeline. Okay. Tennis court both. Then first constitutional monarchy, name becomes legislative assembly. Thereafter 1792 is war with Austria and Prussia. 1793 is second constitution, rise of second constitution. This is Republic Constitution. King is killed. Thereafter, 1794, this period is the reign of terror. Reign of terror, in which Robespierre becomes dictator. Army reaction. Third constitution. One thing which we can write here is National Convention. Third constitution. Directory rule. 1797. Directors tried to capture power. Napoleon captures power. Consulate. This is basically what we've been talking about for the past 2.5 hours, yesterday and today. Can you remember these dates and these basic terminologies which are written here? Yes? Does this make the process of revision better and easy? Okay. Okay. So this is basically the summary of the story. Nobody is asking you the story. Nobody is asking you the summary. But why not? So anybody has any issue in causes and the French Revolution first phase? Because Napoleon is something which we have to discuss. Interesting. It's an interesting phase. But again, not of any purpose to us other than creating the context for unification of Germany. Anybody has any issue here? Okay. Now, I'll talk about that, how Napoleon was convincing. Thermidorian reaction is the Girondinists coming back and killing Robespierre. What was the reason for the war? Because Louis XVI wanted Austrian Prussia to attack. French Revolution comes in GS or not? Obviously, this is for the examination. Cause and significant comes, not this. What about director rule? Directors ruled but did not rule well. No change in economy. Still playing what we call as musical chairs when it comes to power. Thermidorian reaction is Girondinists coming back and killing Robespierre. Now I'm telling you what is going to happen when Napoleon will come to power. That is a separate issue altogether. When will the war end? I will tell you, but wait for that. Wait for that. Fourth constitution. Yes, fourth constitution is here. Don't go forward. First, tell me if this is making sense or not. No, Thermidorian reaction and reign of terror is different. Reign of terror is of Robespierre. Robespierre counter-revolution or getting killed is Thermidorian reaction. Rise of Jacobians and Girondinists. Okay. Now please pay attention. I'm taking the story forward. Till this point, everybody agrees. They have no problem. And they understand the French Revolution causes, the French Revolution course. And now we will go into the other part, which is what is called the Napoleonic era. Now, please pay attention. Please pay attention, because now I want your attention. Phase preceding revolution of aristocrats was bourgeoisie. Bourgeoisie phase because they were the ones who take up the leadership in the legislative assembly. Okay. No, Ashwarya, this French Revolution is still not over. Wait. I'll talk about significance. Now, One of you asked me this question, that how were people convinced about Napoleon? People were sick and tired of the French Revolution. For 10 years, people were getting killed, were having no food, bread riots were still happening, nobody had no real solution. They were fighting a war since 1791-92 about something which they had no idea where they were going with also. So when Napoleon comes back, Napoleon had proved that he was a very good general. And whilst, because all history is written from the perspective of the British always talk about Napoleon in a very bad way, that he was a very small, very short-tempered dictator. No, but for the French, Napoleon is actually a very important personality, because Napoleon did something which nobody was able to do for a decade. So when Napoleon came back, he had shown that he was a very good administrator, he was a very good general, and more than that, people now wanted stability. See, revolution or revolutionary ideas till one point are okay, but after a certain point, they start to become frustrated with it. And therefore, in 1799, when he captured power, everybody knew that he was not a royalist, not a Jacobean, but he was a person who could give France what it wanted. So he basically used the despicable position or the very bad position of France very well to very simply say to the people, I have the solution, let me capture power. And the military captured power under Napoleon, nobody said nothing. Napoleon himself had actually made his career during the French Revolution. He came from a very small island called Corsica. Corsica was ruled by France, and when he reached France, he reached there when the French Revolution had begun. He truly believed in the ideals of the French Revolution, which is democracy, freedom, fraternity,